local history, local culture, local events, your community. This is the Joe Kelly Show.
And welcome to the show, everybody. We're in Albany. We're not up on Smith Hill. We're down in Albany, and a good day to be here because it is lobby day, and there's a lot of people in the state capitol. And we're here at the invitation of State Senator Griffo. Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to have you, Joe. Welcome back to Albany.
Thank you. It's been a while, and
you've been here a couple of times, both professionally, and then later we did something similar where you introduced the viewing audience to what goes on at the Capitol.
Good memory, yes. And now we're up on the fourth floor, right?
We are, fourth floor of the Capitol.
And we're outside of your office. Last time we were down here, your office was across the street.
Yes, in the Legislative Office Building.
And what caused the move over here was because you're the deputy minority leader, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. The big difference between being in the minority and the majority.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a difference. I mean, we're fortunate because we've developed a lot of good relationships. We can continue to, and we have always tried to work across the aisle to call attention to issues of importance, not only throughout the state, but more importantly, throughout our region. And we can continue to advocate and to provide the attention and the resources to deal with some of our challenges. Where it's more frustrating is here from a legislative perspective, because the agenda is run and controlled by the majority, and some of the decisions that are made relative to that, I think sometime it's a little different. I mean, we've talked about this, and as we indicated earlier, I'm a guy that works across the aisle, but in this particular situation, we don't have a balance of power. You have complete domination by one party of all of state government, and the interests are dominated, the leadership from downstate. So it's one party controlled, downstate dominated leadership, and it's a little different perspective of the world. You know, we need to respect each other's opinions and philosophic and political views, but when you all come from one area, it makes it a little more frustrating.
In fact, didn't you, and I'm not sure if you've got a bill in on this or not, but I know you've advocated for this, and that is to do a different way of choosing senators.
It's a great point. I mean, there's a lot of frustration upstate sometimes where people feel that our voices aren't heard because you're dominated by the metropolitan area. And I do believe that we need to coexist. I mean, a lot of people talk about separating the state. I don't know that that's a feasible way or an economic way for any region to survive ultimately, but we do have to recognize and we need a balance. And that doesn't exist when you see the current form of government right here. Obviously, the voters have decided, but many of those voters are downstate too, because the upstate decisions are somewhat different. So there have been a number of proposals of how do you achieve that balance of power. And the recommendation that I have made that I think is a logical and reasonable one would be to follow the federal model, which would require a constitutional change, as well as a challenge to Supreme Court rulings of one man, one vote. And what we do is reflect the federal model. The New York State Assembly would be based upon population, so where the greater areas of population would have more representatives. The Senate would follow the federal model, where we would reduce the Senate from 63 to 62 members. And we have 62 counties in the state, and every county would get a senator. So regardless of your size, you would receive a senator in the county, in the state. And that's similar to the U.S. government. If you look at Wyoming, there's one representative in Congress and 2 U.S. senators. And yet California has 2 U.S. senators, but over 50 members in the House. So we could do the same here, where Hamilton County, with only 8,000 people, would get a senator, and Brooklyn, which could be the 4th largest city in America, would get 1 senator. The city of New York would only have the 5 senators for the borough.
Right. Speaking of geography, you've got one of the biggest geographic districts in New York State. You go from Route 20 to the south up to the Canadian border.
Yeah, we were actually with the Canadian officials yesterday. They were here, their Consul General, talking about cross-border issues. It's a very big district. It represents about 350,000 people. Can fit the states of Rhode Island and Delaware in the Senate district. It takes over 3 hours to get from one end to the other. We do our best to get around all aspects and all regions of the district. So it's St. Lawrence County, Lewis County, and most of Oneida County.
I was talking to Controller DiNapoli earlier. He was singing your praises. He's a Democrat. You've got a Democrat governor. What's your relationship with him?
Well, I get along with both. I've gotten along with Controller DiNapoli, and I have known each other for a long time, and we've worked on issues. We brought him in when Utica was having some of their fiscal challenges with the mayor, had meetings, and I think the Controller DiNapoli has been a friend to the area and the community, and I appreciate his work and his attention to our community. And the governor is a unique individual. You know, I believe you need to work with people. I disagree with a lot of the initiatives and proposals that he has presented, but I think we can do that in a respectful way, and we need to have our voices heard. I'm just hopeful that people become more attentive to the need to find common ground. And when you had divided government here in New York, you had that opportunity, and it worked. You saw major things get accomplished, even when there was disagreement. So you got a result, but at least you had a different perspective that was put into the equation. You've lost that now when you have the one-party control. So as I said, I will work with anyone for the betterment and the benefit of our communities.
I'm hearing some noise in the background. Today is lobby day. Tuesday is traditionally lobby day down here. Who's been down here to see you today?
Well, you got a lot of different people. In fact, you also have protests. You may even see some protests, which I think is a great illustration of our democratic process. When you think about our democracy and that you can come to a seat of government and to be able to hold some type of demonstration to present your point of view, I think that is what continues the vibrancy of our democracy.
They usually protest right over there on the $1 Million Staircase.
Everywhere. They can do it anywhere. In fact, you missed it a little earlier. They were very loud, and that happens on any given day, but particularly on Tuesday when various groups come to present their message. Today we're meeting with a lot of higher education groups. I think you were able to film SUNY Poly and SUNY Morrisville. We met with MVCC, Clarkson University. We have a number of different meetings that will be going on throughout the course of the day, but that's what some of your viewers will be seeing. And there's budget hearings going on, which I believe you'll also have an opportunity to go and see some of that take place. That's important because that's where groups are presenting their perspective on the governor's proposal. And once that is done, we then begin as a legislature to discuss different components and then decide on one House bills that ultimately bring us to that negotiation between the legislature and the executive.
I'm going to cut you off right there because we're going to take a break. But when we come back, let's talk about Medicaid. That's a big issue going on right now. State Senator Griffo is our guest. We're talking about a variety of state issues. We're going to take a short break. Right back.